former Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne, joins us now. Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. Nice to see you, Travis.
Nice to see you. So, of course, most folks will know you as the former Premier of Ontario, but you had a long career before that. Just tell us a little bit about your path.
The decade before I was in elected office, I was working as a community mediator, and I also was doing conflict resolution and mediation training in schools. So I traveled around the province and worked in a number of schools, both in the Catholic and the public boards. And then I all the while raising my kids and also being involved in community activism in education. That was how I got started. And then when the Mike Harris government was elected, there was a lot of turmoil in Ontario, and I was certainly opposed to many of the changes that government was making. And that's really what propelled me into political office.
And through all those roles, including when you were in political office, how important was communication?
Central to everything that I did. I did a master's degree in linguistics, a master's degree in education. And so language, the use of language, the way we have expectations of each other because of language and how we're perceived because of our language, how we use language, was always central to my work. When I got involved in politics, it was that focus and the notion that in order to make myself understood and make the policies that I was supporting understood, I had to figure out how to communicate those in a number of different medias.
And of course, you have had to communicate under pressure a lot in your career. What have you learned about how to do that effectively?
I remember when I first was doing TV, my mom had been a performer. She was not a politician, but she was she was on stage when she was a young woman, and she was in the early years of TV, and she would watch my interviews and she would call me afterwards and she would say, Kath, you were a little too hot. You got to find a way to just chill. So I needed to find a way to channel my irritation, my anger, my impatience, all those things that I felt, all the things that were good in terms of motivating me, Travis, but didn't serve me if I was trying to talk to the public. And honestly, I got into mediation because I needed to find a way to control my own and channel my own anger at situations in the world. And mediation training helped me develop skills in active listening and in sort of empathy that served me very well in my personal life, but also in my public life.
You mentioned something there, listening. How key is that when it comes to communicating?
I think that the reason I was able to be elected and reelected was that I had trained myself to listen to people. First of all, I'm interested in people. I love people. When I first started canvassing, the first time I ran for office in 1994 to be a school trustee, I just loved the exercise of knocking on a stranger's door and having a conversation about education. I really wanted to hear what people had to say. The success of my career and my ability to be a politician, I really believe if I hadn't been able to listen to people, if I hadn't been able to engage one-on-one with people at the door, at an event, in the media, I don't think I would have been able to continue as a politician. I think it's what really defined my success.
Do you think flexibility is a factor as well, depending on who you are communicating with and being flexible to the environment that you're in?
I think flexibility. I also think having a sense of humor. I think that if you lose, my opinion is if you lose your sense of humor as a politician, you're going to have a very bleak life because there are ridiculous situations that you find yourself in. There are questions you don't want to answer. I mean, I'll give you an example and you were part of this, I will just say, but at the end of our, when we were heading into the 2018 election and our numbers were really, really bad. And I would go to press scrums and there would inevitably be a couple of people who would say, well, what does it feel like to have such low numbers and to have so many people dislike you? And
I think I was one of those journalists.
It's a ridiculous question. Like, what's the answer to that?
Right.
Oh, it feels great. I get up in
Yeah.
the morning and I really look forward to you asking that question. But I don't think we ever got into a chippy exchange
No,
about it
so that
because
was well, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you maintain when you've got a question like that? You are annoyed. How do you maintain composure because all the cameras are rolling?
well, that's where the sense of humor came in for me
Mhm.
because I knowing what was going to happen is very helpful, knowing that that was going to be the question and being prepared for it. And I think a couple of times I actually did laugh when the question was asked to me because
Yeah.
everybody knew. And there was one reporter at one point, she said to me, I know I have to ask this question, so
Yeah.
so I think that treating each other like human beings, Travis, I think
Mhm.
that's really what it comes down to. I'm doing a job, you're doing a job. We have to have this exchange. And I'm not going to take it personally because you're not delivering it personally. And
Mhm.
I even felt that with people who got angry. If you think about the sex education debate
Right.
in Ontario, I went to events and there were people protesting and yelling at me and just so angry. And what I tried to think about was, what is it that you're worried about? Tell me what it is you're worried about.
Part of the work that we do at Westbridge is media training, but also crisis comms. What do you think most leaders misunderstand about managing reputation?
I think people want honesty. I can remember when I would stand up when I was first premier, and every scrum I had to stand up and talk about the gas plants. I just worked really hard to talk about what was happening, to say that, to apologize in a way that was sincere because I was sincerely sorry that that the whole situation had evolved the way it was. And then there was also the situation in Sudbury with the nomination, and I
Mhm.
had to deal with reputations of some of my staff members.
Mhm.
I really believed that communicating more rather than less was important for me.
And the last question I have is there will be folks in political office right now thinking about going into politics, business leaders, those thinking about going into leadership positions that will be watching this. If there is one piece of advice that you would impart on those folks, what would it be?
It has to be about the work. So, who is it that you want to represent, and what is it that you want to do? And that, I think, is what sustains me or sustained me. And I really believe that at the end of the day, when people ask me, was it worth it? I go back to, who did I help? And sometimes I can think about individuals. Sometimes I can think about, all the junior kindergarten kids who have full day kindergarten because of what Dalton McGuinty and our government did. But what is it you want to do, and who is it that you want to help?
And getting your message out effectively and clearly. Kathleen Wynne, former Premier of Ontario, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Travis.
Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe to this channel for more or visit westbridgestrategies.com for more information on our organization.